friend. It's your host, Sihle Jafta, and we're back with another episode. Welcome back to Floor 27. It is always a pleasure and absolute honor to have you guys. And today we are hosted by the very beautiful, absolutely stunning Ivory House slash The Palms in Plettenberg Bay. And of course, it's stunning. Like, of course, it's absolutely stunning. All the venues that I take you guys to are absolutely stunning, like breathtaking. You have the most beautiful lagoon view, the most beautiful ocean view. And yeah, one thing about me, I love a good dining spot. I don't think there's anything that surpasses a good conversation with people that you love over a beautiful meal and a beautiful drink. So when we're doing these venue hopping and these venue viewings, we're definitely going to do a lot of like very beautiful, absolutely stunning dining spots. But nonetheless, I'm so happy to be back. More than anything, guys, I just want to say, live Vicky. This week has been absolutely terrible. Like, it's been the hardest week, I think, this year. And the fact that I actually made it to Friday and I made it here and I'm recording is God. It's the God in me. You know what I mean? And I feel like I want to start off this episode by saying that if you have a dream, if you have something that you are pursuing, there is going to be testing. I think, in fact, that testing, they wonder when you have to prove how badly you want it and you're being tested in every angle, in every possible way. Your character is being tested and how much you want it is being tested. That is when you genuinely need to pull up and show up the most for yourself. And I think this was that kind of week of just literally showing up for myself. And ndiyayibona le nto. I think also it's so difficult. It's really, really difficult living in the tension of where you want to be and where you want to go and the vision that you have in your head compared to where you are currently, and I'm just like, guys, I'm fighting for this thing for a reason because I know where I'm going. Like, I know where this thing is going and I know what it's going to grow into and I know what it's going to turn into. So yeah, it was basically just, it was literally one of those weeks where my dream and my vision for this thing was just like genuinely tested. But I'm more than happy to be here and I'm so happy to be back and to be hosting you guys. And with that being said, let's jump into today's episode. So I'm deeply like, yo, guys, like I told you guys, I had the most hectic week. So in this polele, I'm having a mocktail. I am on a sober journey. I don't know if I want to call it a sober journey, actually. Like, a sober journey makes it sound, and yes, like, it makes it a thing, and I don't want to make it a thing. Like, I'm just living a sober lifestyle. Come on, and like that's just it. Because I feel like when we put too many labels on things and we put too much pressure on ourselves, that's when it starts getting really like tricky. Ukubone. So I'm literally just sober. That's it, to be honest with you. And I'm just trying to deconstruct le culture of labeling within myself. I think we label things a lot, too much actually, and we put too much pressure on ourselves. Go on and gizindo because we want to quickly name things and label them. And let me tell you something. I'm literally just a girl in my 20s trying to figure out what it is that I want to do, what it is that I don't want to do, who it is that I want to be, who it is that I don't want to be. And I don't need a label for all of that because also when you impose a label on yourself again, certain pressures that come with that label. Like, for now, I don't know if I'm never going to drink again in my life. I don't know if I'm not drinking because it's a season that I'm going through, but I know I made a promise to myself. I know I made a promise to God. I know that I didn't like who I was when I was drinking. I know that I feel like I need to engage in a better drinking culture if ever I go back to drinking. I know that I don't like how much it costs me, and not even from a monetary point of view, but just ixesha, like my time, like being hung over on the Monday, not being able to show up as my best self the following day. It just costs me too much. My body, the extra calories I took on because of that, it completely compromised my fitness and health journey. Um, and I don't like not being together. Like, I don't like not being the best version of myself. I don't like not being in control. I don't like the quality of life when you are intoxicated, like how you're experiencing life. I honestly prefer being sober minded. And also, it's one of those things where I've spent a lot of time intentionally working on my mental health. So being sober also, like, I don't mind not being sober because I don't have any anxieties or thoughts that are haunting me with sober state. Yeah, I'm not using alcohol as a form of escape. And in fact, when I did use alcohol as a form of escape, I was at my poorest in terms of mental health. So I'm more than happy to live in my mind. I actually love living in my mind. Like I'm one of those people who like I'll literally drive in absolute silence. Like I'm not obsessed with constantly filling up silence with noise. I absolutely appreciate silence. I absolutely appreciate having the time to think and see what's on my mind, what's going on in my mind, and being intentional about setting the tone in ngqondweni yami, the kind of thoughts that I allow and thoughts that I don't allow and I let go of and that kind of thing. So, like, I don't know, like maybe I've outgrown Utjoala. It could literally be that. But I just know that I'm at a place where I'm listening to all the things that my life is like authentically and intentionally and truly pulling me towards. So if my life right now is pulling me towards being sober, that's what I'm gonna do, babe. And you know what? I might wake up tomorrow with a shot of Don Julio. Who knows? But if it's true to me in that moment, and if it speaks to who I am and who I want to be and how I want to present and how I want to show up, then great. And I also know that just utjoala, like alcohol and the culture around alcohol in black communities and black families, and how I've watched my families, my uncles, my aunts, and people around me relate with alcohol and the relationship that they've had with alcohol. It's not the kind of relationship that I want to have with alcohol. So I was just like, girl, it's just time for me to rewrite the story for myself and decide for myself what it is that I actually truly want. So yeah, that's just where I am, really. That's just where I am. But I didn't even anticipate that this was going to be a long alcohol rant. Maybe I should make an episode on sobriety. And yes, but yeah, so basically, this is just like one of those places where, like, it's absolutely stunning, you guys. It's absolutely stunning. Overlooking the lagoon, you can see the mountains, you can see the ocean. Like, it's absolutely lovely. The sun or the sunset is absolutely breathtaking here. It's the perfect place to come and spend some time with some loved ones. Also, if you've watched Your Bestie on Netflix, this is where that movie was shot. So if you've seen it there as well, you're probably familiar with how absolutely stunning and gorgeous it is. So yeah, come and enjoy. Also, like I'm trying to milk the very last few days of summer that we have left because Sana, it's 27 degrees in Plettenberg Bay. It's absolutely warm. It's absolutely gorgeous and absolutely beautiful. So I'm literally just trying to milk the last bit of summer that we have left. But welcome to this episode. Dikale, or like I literally just I just went in rambling hardcore, but I'm actually more than happy to share my journey and my experience with being sober because I think just na uteta, like speaking and finding language for things is literally my therapy. Like I self-therapize that way. I love to be able to sort through my thoughts and the things that I want for myself and find language for them. Not necessarily labels, but language for them. It's absolutely freeing for me and I absolutely enjoy it. And I think what I love the most and what I love the most even with this platform and even just my social media platforms is I found that just sharing my experiences and being able to find language for just experiences in Dinazo as a young girl, just the girl. Sometimes it helps the next person also find language, for what they're experiencing and what's happening in their lives. And I think that's what primarily connects us as human beings is that we have these shared experiences. And in fact that is the hope of humanity, that everything that you're going through and everything that you're experiencing, it's not the first time. You're not the only person. It's not exclusive to you. Like somebody else is going through it too. And when we can share in our stories and we can share in our experiences, we really I feel like that is the pinnacle of hope. That is what hope is, that we find hope in each other's voices, in each other's stories. So, yeah, on that note, let's jump into this week's episode. I am actually super excited for today's um episode. I think for the last two episodes that we filmed, the first and the second episode of season 2, I've definitely been a little bit nervous, and I'm pretty sure you guys could pick it up. Like I'm definitely nervous in front of camera because I'm shooting for the first time. Like all of my episodes before were all audio, and audio is a completely different experience. Yeah, well, but I'm shooting for the first time in front of camera, so the fear of perceptions, zonke ezi zinto, and just like worrying about how I'm showing up on camera. Zungezo, like it's a lot, but I definitely just feel so much more calmer and so much more centered. And that makes me excited for the delivery of the episode. But I also just want to say thank you guys for your unwavering support. And I feel like with every episode, I literally start off by thanking you guys because I don't think I even have the words to truly express how grateful I am for all the support. This podcast has definitely been a dream of mine, and to be able to do it and to do it on my terms, and there are people who are like, yes, you've broken the mold a bit, but we're so happy to support you and to follow your journey and to see what you do with this. That is an absolute blessing. And I'm eternally, eternally grateful for that. But to jump into today's episode, simply put, I think I'm going through an identity crisis. And I think I'm actually even going to title this episode Identity Crisis. I think I'm genuinely going through an identity crisis. And I feel confident that there are a couple of people who are going to be able to relate with me on this one. But I spent some time this week thinking, like I said, I had quite a tough week. There is two collaborations that I'm doing in May. The podcast, I mean, that's exciting. Like, that's good news. The podcast has two collaborations in May, and they're so exciting, right? But because I care so much for my vision and what it is that I'm trying to do with this podcast, just planning and the logistics and everything around it have been driving me absolutely crazy. But there's this constant question in the back of my mind of, am I doing enough? Like, I'm constantly wondering and I'm constantly asking myself, am I doing enough? Like, am I showing up enough? Am I doing the best that I can to get this podcast to where it is? And in the midst of asking myself those questions, I asked myself a very critical question of, am I doing enough to become the best version of myself, the highest version of myself? And I think this is something that I think has been encouraged by podcasts maybe that I've listened to and speakers that I've listened to, books that I've read. And I've just encountered this quite a lot in my life where people will say, just imagine the best version of yourself, the most successful version of yourself, just the dream version of yourself, and then start to slowly work towards becoming that person. And so I do hold this image of, you know, my dream self, like the highest version of myself, if I really like locked in, and did everything that I know is needed for me to become that version of myself, like, am I egging closer to her? Am I doing enough, to behold her, like to really reach her? Am I doing enough to become her? I have this picture in my mind of this ideal Sisha, like the most perfect, successful, like highest version of myself. And there is a sense of distance between where I am right now and where she is and who she is. And I think I've lived with an anxiety of, am I doing enough to become her, to finally step into her shoes and to finally arrive at that place. And I've always lived with that anxiety, like deeply rooted within me. And I've always lived with that consciousness of this alternative version of me that is in her highest form and high achieving. I've always lived, I don't know if I've lived with her in my mind in like harmoniously. Like, I don't know if I've lived with her in a way that encourages me, but I do know that I've carried an anxiety within me concerning her, and I've always carried some kind of tension within me when I consider her. And I think a lot of that tension comes from the fear of never becoming her. Like, what if I never reach her? What if I never reach that version of me? What if I have never become her? Like, what would that mean? you know and this last week, I've really been thinking about that, and I've been thinking about all the things that it would require for me to become her. And I think that sometimes I consider her so much that I lose sight of who I am right now, and completely losing sight of the fact that I would never be able to be her, and I would never be able to reach the place that she's at without being the person that I am right now, right? And in fact, I challenged myself to sit down and write in my diary some of the things that are, I guess, her most prominent and her most obvious characteristics. And I wrote in my diary that I think she's quite masculine. You know, she shows up with quite a masculine energy, more masculine than I prefer to present in the world, actually. And I think she's very rigid, and more rigid than what I am and how I present. And I think she's a bit of a perfectionist, and she looks perfect, you know, like the when I think of the highest best version of myself, there's a level of perfection that I have attached to her, and that level of perfection is so unrealistic. Like it's the furthest thing from reality. Like, and in fact, it makes her a goalpost that is constantly moving far away from me. Like her level of perfectionism and put togetherness. In fact, she's put together in a way that it almost feels like there's something that she's hiding. You know, there's a point that she's trying to prove to someone else in her rigidness and perfection and put togetherness. And I had to ask myself this question: if I never became her, like, how would that make me feel? You know, if I never became this highest version of myself, how would that make me feel? You know, and to be quite honest, like for a minute, like for a second, it actually gave me a little bit of anxiety. Like, I have praised her for such a long time and I have put her on such a high pedestal for such a long time, and she has been my hope for the future, that one day I'm going to become this woman and she's going to be driving this car and she's going to be acting this way, she's going to be carrying herself in this way. And if I never became her, like, it would feel like absolute failure. But what a dishonor to the person that I am right now. Because if I feel like I would consider myself a failure if I never became that version of myself that I hold in my mind. That means I have no appreciation for the person that I am right now. And I don't consider the version of myself that I am right now as a success. I mean, to think about it, to even be able to get to where I am right now, to be living out my dreams, to be recording my podcast, to be a loving, caring sister, an amazing friend. I love God. The woman, the young woman that I am right now, took a lot of work for me to get here, and it is such a disservice to her how highly I consider the future version of myself that I hold in my mind, and this highest version of myself. I feel like I've been doing such a great disservice to myself. I have been discrediting myself for the amazing woman that I am right now by considering too highly the woman that I want to be tomorrow. And so I guess I've just been the whole week, I've been thinking about how, man, like, what if the person, the Sisha that I am right now, and the person that I am right now is all I got in this life? If the person that I am today, right now, is all I ever got in this life, would that be enough for me? You know, and if not, why would the person that I am right now not be enough for me? Because I know damn well that I've worked pretty hard to get to the person that I am right now, and that my mistakes and my flaws live in perfect harmony with my brilliance and my excellence and my creativity and my warmness and my kindness and my intelligence. You know, that the good and the bad come together in the most beautiful way to create this very specific and very intentional and very significant person that I am right now. And why can I not live in the reality of that girl, you know, and love her for who she is, you know? And I think I've considered the future so much that I've kind of let go of the present. I don't hold the present tight enough, and I don't appreciate the present tight enough. And I think I want to move to a place where I hold the future loosely, you know. And I think if you're someone like me who is super intentional, and you are a big dreamer, and you have this big life that you want to build for yourself, and you are an alpha female, and you are all of these things that we are. You know, you're a Capricorn, you consider your work very highly, you consider yourself very highly. It's very easy to get lost in the versions of ourselves that we build for the future and we aspire to become, you know, that we forget to really soak up the people that we are right now and to love the people that we are right now. Because I'm like, girl, the girl that I am right now, she's pretty fly. Like, she's pretty fly. She's pretty cool. And I don't know if I'm giving her enough space, you know, and enough love and enough celebration and enough appreciation, you know. And I really just want to be at this place where I can fully grasp who I am and fully step into her, into loving her, into knowing her, into appreciating her, into celebrating her, and I don't consider my future self at the cost of my present self. And this really made me think about like what identity is, and how I consider my own identity, and how I describe identity for myself. I was literally thinking to myself the other day that identity, I think for me, is the reality of who I am right now, right in this moment, right in the second. Who am I? That is my identity, the reality and the truth of who I am right now. But that identity lives at almost a tension, if I might say. The threat of who I was yesterday is pulling it in its own direction, and the hope of who I want to be tomorrow is pulling in its own direction. And it honestly makes the present moment high in tension, right? Because I guess there are a lot of the time what we consider the most about our past, or the things that we were not so proud of, or the things that we were not so happy about, right? So we always have the threat of who we were yesterday tugging and pulling at us, that are we doing enough to become better, because we're always thriving and aiming to do better, and we always aspiring to do better. So the thread of who we are yesterday is constantly tugging and pulling at who we are today, and the hope of who we want to be tomorrow, and the hope of what we want to achieve tomorrow is also pulling at us in that direction. And it makes the present moment and the present reality of your identity to live in the state of tension, high tension, constantly. And that tension tends to take away from how much we appreciate this moment, and how much we appreciate where we are and who we are right now. And I think this idea of identity, and being able to live with who we are and love who we are, and be who we are in the moment, is finding ways to calm down that tension, to really calm down that tension and bring it into ease, and bring it into a place that you are comfortable for, or you are comfortable with, rather. Because I guess the thread of who we were yesterday and our failures yesterday are not meant to define who we are today, but they're definitely meant to inspire us to keep doing better. And the hope of who we want to be tomorrow should seed within us, that want to wake up again tomorrow, and that hope of wanting to wake up again tomorrow and keep doing better, and keep thriving, and keep aspiring to something. It gives us a goalpost, but that goalpost should be in a healthy distance and in healthy proportion. And I think what I've been able to define for myself as identity is exactly that, the reality of who I am right now in this moment. But that reality, I cannot pretend that it lives in a vacuum and it exists alone, because it doesn't. It's constantly being tugged at by who I was yesterday and who I want to be tomorrow. But neither of those people, yesterday and tomorrow's versions, should be more important than who I am today. Because tomorrow, who I am right now is going to define who I consider as my past self tomorrow. And who I am today also defines, in a lot of ways, who I can become tomorrow. And so I guess I've just been grappling with this idea of identity and playing around with it quite a lot in my mind, and trying to ease myself of the pressures that I put on myself as a young woman who is in the process of becoming. And I think we are forever in the process of becoming. I don't think we ever get to a place where you're like, hey, I have perfectly become, you know? And yeah, I think that's more or less what I wanted to share for today and on today's episode. And I want to encourage you to really see yourself, to really, really see yourself for who you are today, and how you present today, and how hard you've worked to get to where you are today and who you are today, and to really not allow the pressure of who we want to be tomorrow to steal the joy of today. Because the, I like to say the only thing that's real the most real thing that we have is this present moment. Yesterday is just a memory and tomorrow is a mere hope. But what you have today in this very moment is the only real thing that you have. And I just want to encourage you to love who you are in this very moment. Like, that's all you truly have. The time that you have with you right now is all you truly have. How you show up today for gym, the fact that you did show up, and even when you don't, sometimes you need to rest, and sometimes you've worked hard enough to earn that rest. How you show up at work, um it, like, being able to fully be present in who you are right now has, like, really been, it has redefined my quality of life incredibly, because I'm like, hey, I'm done waiting for permission to be great. Like, I'm done waiting to be released into my greatness by my future self, when I have finally fit this perfect mold that I've built for myself in terms of what my highest version of myself is supposed to look like. No, I am that girl right here and right now. I am that girl right here and right now, and I deserve absolutely the best of everything. Absolutely the best of everything. If I can take myself to have a mocktail and have a beautiful lagoon and ocean view and have the time of my life, girl, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it right now because I deserve it right now. You know, I deserve the kind words now. I deserve to speak kindly to myself now. I deserve it now. Now. You know, I deserve honesty from my friends now. Now I deserve the best friendship that my friends can give me now, and I'm not going to accept scraps. I deserve the best date now. If there's some guy trying to take me out on a date, I deserve it now. I deserve it today. I deserve the best of everything today. Because what if the version of me that I have right now and today is the only version that I'll ever get? Then best believe I'm going to honor her. I'm going to honor her. I'm going to love her. I deserve to compliment myself now. I deserve to speak highly of myself now, today. I deserve the best of everything now, today. There is no other moment. There is no other day, where I'm going to deserve the best more than I deserve the best right now. And I'm more than determined to give myself that, the absolute best of absolutely everything in the present moment. I speak the best and the kindest words to myself when I'm running to encourage myself to finish my 5 kilometers. I wake up in the morning and I speak life over myself and kindness over myself. And I deserve it because I deserve it. I genuinely deserve the best of everything in this very moment, right here and right now. And I'm basically here to tell you that you do too, girlfriend. You do too. You do too. And yeah, that's all for today's episode. I absolutely love you guys and I absolutely appreciate your support and your love. And I hope you guys enjoyed the Palms and Ivory Park. Absolutely love it. I'll definitely give you guys a glimpse of the view and everything that I'm experiencing. But if you ever find yourself in Plettenberg Bay looking for a beautiful place to dine, definitely consider the Palms in Plettenberg Bay. And I love you loads. I hope you guys have a beautiful weekend and a beautiful week. And I'll see you again next week for another episode.